Today we'll be making this ultra cute waterfall cake in Blender 4.5.3. On top of modeling everything, we will also be learning how to set up particle systems, set up an array, and how to set up the skin modifier. This tutorial is for anyone from a Blender beginner to someone more experienced who just wants to make something cute, but you need to at least be comfortable with the Blender interface, as I'll be adding objects and moving around the program pretty quickly. So if that speed is a little bit too fast for you, I have a complete beginner tutorial that will give you the foundations you need to then complete this tutorial. So you can click the pop-up that will come somewhere on the screen. The Blender project file for this project will also be available on Gumroad for $5 if you want to dig through the file yourself and also support me making tutorials. I'm also active on Instagram if you finish this project or any of my other tutorials. I've got the ultimate beginner picnic tutorial and I've got a surreal cake tutorial. I'm really on the cakes at the moment. If you complete either of those, feel free to upload it to Instagram and tag me, and I'll reshare it and add it into my Instagram highlights. Feel free to ask any questions you might have in the comments or reach out directly to me on Instagram because I'm chronically online and I also like to chat. I'm always, I'll reply to almost every single comment or almost every single message unless you say something a bit weird. That's kind of how it goes. I'm going to go through my creative process a little bit, so skip this if you're only interested in my technique, but something that I want to emphasize is that you can have all the skills in the world and you can know Blender inside out and know every single tool and how to make perfect models. But if you don't have any creative process, you won't be able to make anything that you like. So this is something that a lot of tutorials kind of skim over. How did they come up with the idea in the first place to make something cute or fun? You know, it depends what you want to make. But just really quickly, we're going to run over my creative process here. So I've got a few things. So this is a Miro board. They also have it's like an online whiteboard, but Figma is also a similar tool that does pretty much the same thing. Well, I mean, Figma Jamboards is literally the same thing as this, and that's a free alternative if you don't have Miro, but you know, I love Miro. So my original thought here was I saw this cake that Kitty Cinderella made, and I was like, that is beautiful. And I was like, I could totally make that in Blender. Like, it just really captured me, and I was like, I love that. I think it's really pretty. And then I started thinking, in Australia, there's the Women's Weekly catalogue, and they have these classic cakes that people will always make for their kids. It's kind of like part of childhood, I guess. So these two cakes here are both from the Women's Weekly. I think it's Australian. But I had a cake exactly like this when I was a child. Where is it? This one here, that's me. I think this was my 7th birthday. And that's the mushroom cake. That I feel just brings some kind of joy. And I was a real fairy child. As you can see here, this is my 5th my 5th birthday party. Just kind of the vibes of these cakes and the magic of it. I feel I started thinking I want to make something that baby me, 5 to 7-year-old me, would have been like, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen. And kind of incorporate some of those themes, like the jelly kind of water in the cake. I feel it's something so classic. Just kind of that, the fairy vibes and kind of that childhood sort of joy when you get a birthday cake that's just magical. So I wanted to also incorporate the mushroom from that. So then I also started to go to Pinterest and I'm like, okay, now I need to get the shapes of what I want to make. So these are from Pinterest. These are from my life. And then these are also from Pinterest, I think, and the Women's Weekly magazine. What did I like? I really liked how they did the grass in this duck one. I feel this is so cute, and also just the colors are really nice. So I really liked this grass texture and I was like, okay, I want to make something similar to that. And then a lot of these are just for the colors. I was interested about how this doesn't look that tasty. I feel eating jelly in a cake, I don't know if it's actually that yummy. But these were kind of like the final references that I've used for what we're actually going to do. So this grass here, this like swirly bit here from the piping. I really like the piping on Cutie Cinderella's cake. I feel like that was a really great reference. I really liked these little like the way that they've made the flowers, and then the piping there, and also just the color, like the colorways here, is also what I've taken. But this is kind of like my reference board. I go through Pinterest and I find things that I like, and then I also do a sketch. So I've got my notebook here, but then it's like, can we see that? There's my sketch that I've done, and then I also like started to write out some things, but that's the sketch that I made before I started. And then I make like a reference project as well. So I feel like that's something that I said in my last show as well, that I don't want people to come to this tutorial and think that I'm like able to make this without thinking about it. Like, I've thought this through, and I have, let me bring it up. Like, I've already made this project, so I'm going to start from complete scratch here, but I've already made this project to make sure that I know what I'm actually aiming for. Alrighty, so we are now in Blender 4.5.3, which is currently the latest version of Blender. So, let's just get straight into it. So we're going to grab all of these guys and we're going to delete them. So sorry to the default cube, but it has to be done. And now we're going to add in some, cylinders. Okay, so we're going Shift A, and I'm going to add in a cylinder here, and we're going to scale it up. So I already kind of know like how big I want these to be, but it's like a slightly, we can change these later. So we're going to be a little bit rough about it. I'm just like duplicating that guy and moving him up. And it kind of needs to go like back. Like, this is where you can kind of start to decide what you want to do. Like, how far back do you want this to go? Because you can have your pool be like pretty big, but then this has to go really far back and it will be like, touching the edge, which I just don't think is that cute. So I want it to come forwards like a little bit, so at least it feels a little bit more centered. Okay, cool. So we've got our kind of like general cake shapes. I'm feeling like that is looking relatively comfortable for me. Maybe is this bottom one too big? Should they be a bit like skinnier and taller? It's really up to you to decide. Because also take this tutorial as kind of the base, and you can add whatever you want to this. Like, don't let the way that I've done it stop you from doing it a different way. Yours can look totally different at the end, and I encourage you to add your own creative flair to the projects that I'm making here. You don't have to do it exactly as I'm doing it. We're going to go through a couple different colorways at the end, which I feel like is fun, so that you can also pick the colors that you think are going to look the nicest. Jesus. Okay, we've got our cake shapes here. So now let's make these beveled around the edges. Sorry, I did that really quick, but we're into edit mode here. I'm also going to go slash and take this back into, we're going to apply scale. We're going to go Control A, and we're going to apply that scale just because we use the scale gizmo. It's all going to be out of whack, so we're applying a scale on both of those. And we're going to go back into this cake shape and go slash. And then we're going to grab all these edges here. So that's just Shift, and then what am I even doing? Shift and then Alt on the next loop, or you can just hold Alt and do it. I feel like I do it so quickly these days, I don't really think about it. Okay, and then we're beveling with Control B there. I think that's going to be fine. And we're going to do the same thing onto this one. And we're going to grab this top face, and we're going to grab this bottom face, and then we're going to bevel those as well. Okay, so now what we need, this is where it starts to get a little bit tricky. So we need to make that kind of waterfall section. So it needs to go down, and then it needs to like have the section for it to flow down. Now you can also use a water simulation here, but I don't know if I'd recommend it. I feel like you need to have a pretty beefy computer, and so many things can go wrong with a water simulation. But if you want to learn water simulations, I do also have a video about water simulations that I made a couple of years ago. I'm planning on doing an updated one because I do love a good water simulation. Anyway, I'm just going in here, grabbing this face and insetting it a few times just to give us this geometry that we need here. And then it's also like, how much space do you want for your water? So I reckon about here is going to be fine, because I also want to have some like mushrooms up here, and it's also going to get subdivided. So if we kind of turn on our subdivision surface modifier here, subdivision surface modifier, we can start to just like have that on while we're working. So I'm going to grab this face here and I'm going to go E to kind of make it go down. You know, maybe, is that big enough for me? Maybe I want to also take like this one down. Oh, this is where it gets difficult. So I feel like when you're in face select mode, it can become a little bit tricky to select your loops. So I think you need to click on that edge in there rather than that edge up there, to make sure that you get the right one. Like I tend to just click randomly until I get it, which isn't the best method. So, you know, do what I say, not what I do. Okay, so we've grabbed these faces here and we're going to go, and we're also, while we're here, we're going to grab these faces here because these also need to go downwards. I think these ones too. Is that going to work? Yeah, this is where it definitely gets a little bit more tricky, and you can kind of decide like how deep you want that to be. Like I feel like probably there is looking pretty good, but now our geometry is real funky. And I feel like for projects like this, I don't worry that much about the geometry. I don't think that it has to be perfect because we are just learning here. You know, I feel like as long as the geometry isn't too funky at the end of the day, I think that that's fine. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to do a bit of a sneaky thing here. I'm going to move these really close to each other because then we can clean it up. Okay, so I reckon that that's looking pretty good to me. I'm going to go A, and you can see how close these are. This is a sneaky move. And then I'm going to go into mesh. I'm going to go clean up, and I'm going to go merge by distance. And we can see that's removed 0 vertices. So if we turn it up, we can see now that that's removed 4 vertices. So it's removed the overlapping geometry here, which is what we wanted. So now we've cleaned up our geometry. We've done a bit of a dodgy thing there, but we're getting the same outcome. We're getting what we want. And I call that success. So let's turn our subdivision surface back on so that we can see what we're doing again. Now this needs an extra subdivision because like it just doesn't have enough geometry. So there you can see how it starts looking a lot nicer. There, I'm thinking that I might bevel these edges up here as well. But again, this is really up to you whether or not you want it to be a little bit sharper, or if you aren't stressed. So I'm going to bevel those there just to kind of like, yeah, make that a little bit more like bang, you know, we're going down. Like I guess you can sort of imagine if it was a cake that you could cut that out as well. And if we just right click and go shade smooth, we can kind of like see how that's looking. We might turn this up to 2 here. And I feel like that geometry is looking pretty good if you ask me. So we want to do a similar thing to this one down here, so that we also have this area where the water can flow into. So let's add in a subdivision surface as well, and we'll turn that up to 2 already, and then we need to start trying to figure out how we're going to make this work. So I'm going to use the same technique, and I'm going to inset these faces here all the way in. Oh wow, this is so not aligned to the middle, is it? So we're going to make a bunch of these so we have geometry to work with. And then let's just like line these up while we're here. Oh look, it's not even that bad. We'll just go like here, but that's not in the middle, is it? So let's just like rotate that so that I'm just looking to line up this a little bit with that x-axis. I feel like that's fine. Okay, let's start to move these around. Oh, maybe this, why is that so not aligned to the middle? What's going on? Oh no, maybe it's fine. I feel like it's just the way that I'm looking at it and makes it look like it's not aligned. 1, 2, 3, 4 there. Is this the same? 1, 2, look, should be right. I think that's fine. Let's go eye in there. Okay, beautiful. Probably should stay in edit mode. So then that's falling down there. And yeah, that's like, is that gonna align? So that's aligned to that x-axis. So I think we actually need to just shuffle this guy a little bit more. Yep, that looks about right to me. So then we can grab, yeah, this one's a little bit, you know, you can make whatever shape you want here. I think I'll probably come back to it, but I'm just gonna like pick some of these like a little bit like this. We've got that subdivision surface on, and then it's kind of like, you know, do you want it to be like this? Or do you want it to be more sharp with the E? It's really up to you. So I think I'm going to go with the E. So I'm extruding down. Let's go shade smooth there. But you know, it's a little bit too harsh now. So I think that what we're going to do to fix that is we're going to start like moving these around to just make it feel a little bit more natural. So what you can do is press G twice, and then you can slide your vertices or slide your edges. So I'm also just turning on auto merge vertices. So if I merge this, if these line up, then that will merge. It's not going to do that thing where it creates extra geometry. So then this is a good way to kind of like make it feel a little bit more natural there, so that you don't have these kind of like really harsh lines. So I'm just going to merge a few of these so that we kind of get this like organic looking pool shape. Jesus, I think I'm getting sick. Okay, let's go to local. And we're just going to shuffle these guys around a little bit to just kind of make it look how we want. And then this is going to be covered up like by the waterfall coming down anyway. But I feel like that pool is looking pretty nice. It's not like that even. But you know, we're not doing anything too destructive here today, so we can always come back to it. I love to say that. Yeah, okay, that's looking pretty good to me. Okie dokie. So now what we are going to do here is, this one feels like it has a lot more geometry than this one. Yeah, doesn't really matter. Okay, so we're going to go back up to our top one, and now we're going to like make that waterfall shape. So what I'm going to do is we're going to turn this guy off again so that we have easier access to all of our geometry. And I'm going to do my shift and my alt, and just shift clicking on that one to add it. Shift and alt, oops, shift and alt. So now we have that whole thing selected here. And let's also grab these because that's also going to be like part of our waterfall. And I'm going to go shift D. Now we have this one. I'm just right clicking to release it. I'm going to press P, and I'm going to press separate selection. And then I'm going back into object mode. And now if you double click in there, you can select this object that we've now separated out, which is going to become our our water. So we're going to go back into edit mode. I'm going to go A to select everything, and we're going to go E to extrude it up. Now let's add in a sub. Oh, is that already? No, okay. Turn this back on so we can see what we're working with here. So that's got the basis of our water. Back into edit mode, and I'm going to grab these three faces, and now you can just start like extruding them and moving them around. So it's like a little bit tricky because it rotates. So I'm going to turn this into the Y axis, and I'm going to start to like rotate these and go like E and rotate, and I'm going to move these down and around like this so that we get that looking right. Yeah, like it's not really, it's like a little bit funky. But I think that's going like straight down now, which is what we want. And we'll bring that down to there. And then, yeah, it's kind of looking like a bit like a weird tongue, which makes me slightly uncomfortable. But, you know, once it becomes blue, it kind of loses that aura, thankfully. And I'm just rotating these loops a little bit, just so that it feels a little bit more even as it's going down. Might even just like pull this one out a little bit. I'm going to go and use the global here and just like move that out just a little bit. Okay, I feel like that's fine. That almost feels like it's maybe a little bit too wide. Just like, actually, maybe that's fine. Yeah, it's like slightly, it's not super even, but you know, it doesn't have to be. I feel like, yeah, look, that looks super wonky looking at it from this, looking at it from this direction. So let's just like fix that up a little bit, looking at it from that, that Y view. It's like, ooh, let's just go X here. Sorry, that's a slash, and then we'll look at it from our different, from our different axes. And then let's just fix them up a little bit. And I'm just a lot of selecting these loop edges here, which is a really important skill to have because it's so important and it saves you so much time. Like imagine if I was going through and clicking everything manually, it would take me forever. Beautiful. We'll just shuffle these guys over a little bit. Yeah, this is still like a little bit weird, eh? But should be right. Okay, so now that's a lot more even. Loving it. But yeah, we're kind of blocking out at this stage. So let's, I feel like that's also a good thing to talk about. The whole blocking out thing. So what I do is when I'm making a render, I will kind of very basically block it out, not worry too much about these kind of things, and just go for it at the start, because you can always come back to it. You know, you can add these details in later when you need to. Okay, so we're doing the same exact technique here. We're going to grab the bottoms of these. So it is a bit easier when you've used E down here, because then it's really easy to know that these are your bottom faces. Like you don't kind of have any slanted faces where you might have if you just move them down on the Z axis. So let's grab all these guys. You know, look, we got some funky geometry going on here. We got a what do we call a triangle? We probably shouldn't have any of those. Like it's best practice to have it all be in quads. But because I shuffled all of these around, it's not all in quads, but you know, look, we're making something cute here, so I don't feel like we need to worry too much. I'm just doing that same technique where I've duplicated that one, and then I have extruded it, and then yeah, there we go. So that's getting there. We've kind of got our pool of water, which is good news. Okay, but this needs to like go down and touch it a little bit more because it's not really doing that. Let's just go slash so that we can grab our guys, and let's just like pull them down just so it's touching like that. And we might even just like rotate it a little bit like that. Okay, cool. So now we've kind of got like the basis of our shapes here. This is feeling a little bit too sharp for me, actually. I think I need to dissolve some of these edges. I'm just looking at that and I'm like, yeah, it's just too sharp. So I'm just shift clicking and grabbing these edges here. Because in my original, okay, we're going X and then I'm going dissolve edges, and then that just gets rid of it without it being too crazy. I think I'm also going to grab these and maybe just like go double G and just like shuffle them down a little bit just so that it's slightly less intense. I've got these funny little faces here that I'm not the biggest fan of. Yeah, we've got some funky geometry going on there actually. Who are you? Anyways, let's not worry too much about that. Yeah, I feel like that's probably something that I could improve on, is sometimes I will do things like, this geometry is getting pretty pinched right there because of these extra faces, which is not, it's not ideal. It's not the perfect way to do things. But I definitely, when you're making cute things, you can afford to cut corners, is the way that I approach it. If a client came to me and was like, oh, Lana, like I need, this perfect geometry, I wouldn't be doing it this way, but it takes a lot more time to figure out how to do it perfectly. So I guess that's also something that I should be honest about here. But let's see if we can dissolve these, because I don't like how that's pinching. Let's go dissolve faces. No, that's not going to work. Let's just go X here. And let's just do a little bit of troubleshooting. I also need to frame select it. I don't have a numpad at the moment, which is a bit silly. Okay, you know what? Let's just go into our vertex mode here, and let's just get rid of some of these by going G and then G. I think that's fine. We've got to try, but let's do the same thing here. G and then G. So then we still have this kind of weird little triangle here, which is not ideal again. And this kind of like, what do you call them? An n-gon, where it has more than 4 faces. But that's fine for today, But yeah, just so you know, just so you know. So then anyway, that's removed that pinch in there. I think that's a lot nicer. Is my geometry perfect? No, it is not. Which, yeah, I don't want to pretend like, doing everything perfectly. I feel like I like to talk about this sometimes. There's this pressure to, always be the voice of authority when you are making content. I feel like everyone, when they make content, is always saying about how they know everything and the way they do things is the best way to do things, and they never really stop and tell you, like, actually, I could do this better. But you won't get that from me. You will definitely be getting me saying about how I feel like I could improve. I don't really like how this is, this feels a little bit too skinny in here. It feels a little bit too like this. So I'm thinking about how I could improve that, if I can maybe take this into one of these options. Yeah, maybe it just needs like a G thing happening here. But I've still got the same problem at the top. What if we grab both of these? Oh, sorry, we should just grab one. Yeah. Okay, that's a lot better. Let's do that on this side as well. Just pushing that out. It doesn't have to be perfectly even. A cake isn't going to be perfectly even, and probably no one's going to notice. But then that's slightly off, so we want to do the same thing down here, and just grab this edge here. We'll just pull this a little bit like that, and we'll do the same thing over here. And then if we turn that back on, what's that looking like? Yep, okay, that's looking pretty fun. Yeah, that feels a lot more natural to me, that kind of shape. Okay, beautiful. So now we have, I feel like this can scale up. That needs to be, we're going to reset that origin. We're going to go origin to geometry, and then when we scale that up, that's going to look a little bit nicer. Okay, cool. And then, yeah, we'll come back to that. I don't know if maybe it feels a little bit too uneven. I'm not sure at the moment, but we can come back and check it. At this point, let's also just save. We have an unsaved file, and if our Blender crashes, we will cry our salty tears.